Okay, so we're just going to talk about your study guide for the test tomorrow. What you see in front of you is what you have that you worked on today. So, the circumstances that led to Lincoln's planning to reconstruct the nation, 1863. The key piece of information here is 1863. A lot of people, when I was walking around today, said the war was over. It wasn't. The war did not end until 65. So 1863, you've got the battles of Vicksburg and Gettysburg, which were huge Union victories. Vicksburg gave the Union control of the Mississippi. Gettysburg was as far north as the Confederates were going to push. Okay, number two, the one word that summarizes Lincoln's view of Reconstruction was reconciliation. He wants peace between the former nations. All right, what plan did Lincoln propose and what were its specifics? That's the 10% plan. 10% of the voting population from the 1860 election had to pledge their allegiance, say a loyalty oath to the Union, that they would never rebel again, and then they would be readmitted. Now, they had to draft new constitutions, they had to elect new governments, but it was a pretty generous plan. Okay, the Radical Republicans, number four, they did not like that, so they responded with the Wade-Davis bill or the 50% plan. Make sure you know that those two terms are interchangeable. Wade-Davis bill, 50% plan. Okay, it said 50% of the voting population from 1860 had to swear this ironclad oath, and it is going to exclude ex-Confederates from office and a whole slew of other positions in society. Okay, the three main goals of the Radical Republicans. They wanted to punish the ex-Confederates, they wanted to get rid of President Johnson, and they want to institute black civil rights across the nation. Okay, number six, the five areas of presidential reconstruction. You've got land, you have amendments, you have government, you have pardons, and then you have property for number five. So, Johnson protected Southern property, returned confiscated property. Johnson also stopped the seizure of lands and the division of lands by groups like the Freedmen's Bureau. He pardoned everyone that was involved, except for some certain high-ranking Confederate officials, just to keep some kind of peace. He said states could be readmitted with the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Okay, so again, just take a look at those. The Freedmen's Bureau, number seven, the purpose was to distribute food and supplies and find housing and promote education for freed slaves as well as poor whites. Okay, the swing around the circle speech, number eight. This is Johnson's attempt to try to draw more moderate people into supporting his point of view and his candidates that he wants to run and put in Congress. And it was a flop because he was visibly drunk at most of the stops. He did not really say anything that was truthful. It was a lot of blaming the Radical Republicans for everything that had gone wrong and kind of taking all of the blame away from himself. So it was detrimental to his presidency because it actually gained him more opponents than it did supporters. All right, so the Reconstruction Acts, there were several of those. The big things they did, they divided the South into five military districts. Each one was governed by a U.S. general. They instituted martial law throughout the official 11 Confederate states. They're going to require brand new governments, brand new constitutions, even newer than the ones created under Lincoln and Johnson. And so they're going to try to institute this radical Republican dream of black civil rights and a conquered South. So they're really pushing for two of the major goals here. All right, so 10, compare and contrast carpetbaggers and scalawags. Really the only difference between them is their location. Carpetbaggers come from the north, scalawags were native Southerners for the most part. You've got some moving south in a desire to modernize to promote industry. You've got some promoting education. You've got some for welfare work. You've got some for humanitarian efforts. You've got some coming down because they want to make a quick dollar, so that's what they do. All right, so 11, the most practiced method of farming used during Reconstruction, that's going to be sharecropping. And number 12, how did sharecropping work? It's rent, basically. You live on somebody's land and you pay them in crops. Whatever is left over, that's what you get to keep for consumption and to sell and make a little money yourself. All right, so Reconstruction in Missouri, the big things I wanted you to know, 1865, under Thomas Fletcher, we've got a new government. We've got a new constitution that's going to outlaw slavery in the state. We've got the ironclad oath that is here in Missouri during that time. We've got people voting the radical Republican ticket because they promise peace and prosperity. We've got Missouri dissolving into a guerrilla warfare state once again. Okay. 14, why was it important to former slaves to get an education? It's because they were not allowed to during slavery. It was a threat, and so afterwards they want their children to have a chance of success, and so they do that. Okay. Black voting rights limited during Reconstruction, number 15. Jim Crow laws, you've got poll taxes and literacy tests, which also are down there on 16. You've got the black codes. Okay, 17, the circumstances surrounding Plessy v. Ferguson. Homer Plessy is a black man, buys a ticket for a white train car, is removed and takes it to court, says he was discriminated against. The government steps in and says, no, as long as they provided you a train car to ride on, then you were not discriminated against. The government is not here, the 14th Amendment is not here to keep private businesses from discriminating against you. It is here to keep government from discriminating against you. So it sets a precedent which is called separate but equal. And a precedent is a statement, a ruling issued by the Supreme Court that has the same bearing essentially as a law. So it's separate but equal. As long as there is something for one race, there has to be one for another race. And that lasted all the way until the 1950s. Okay. 18, why were women upset by the passage of the 15th Amendment? Because blacks got the vote and they did not. Up until just the day before the 15th Amendment, blacks were considered subhuman and definitely not able to participate in the political process. And meanwhile, women are educated. They are able to. They want to. And just with the passing of a bill, all of a sudden women have no right to vote and blacks too. So that was a major offense to a lot. All right, 19, who were the Redeemers? They were Southerners who wanted the old South back. They wanted to bring back as many of the old ways as they possibly could, and they gained a lot of power during Reconstruction. All right, 20, the KKK Acts. Really what those did is it made interfering with voting a federal offense, and you would be tried as such. President Grant had to pass them because the Klan was becoming so popular. As Reconstruction went on, people got more and more dissatisfied with the state of the South and being held down. And so the Klan is an outlet of all that anger, and as lynching is on number 21. And so Grant has to pass this bill in an attempt to uphold the democratic process in the South. So 21, what is lynching? It's hanging. It was very, very prevalent, and it was curbed by activists, people like Ida B. Wells and others who came out and said, this is going on in our towns, not just in the South, but across the country. Lynching did continue, but its heyday was in the 1880s, 1890s, stopped around 1905, 1910 is when it really starts to take a sharp decline. Okay, 22, the New South. That's where they want to replace agriculture with industry. They want to be more cooperative with the North, and they want to transform the South. 23, radical Republicans. They started to gain power around 1873, mainly because people were tired. They had been dealing with radical Reconstruction for over 10 years, and the immigrants coming in tended to vote Democrat because the Democrats seemed to speak to them more. The radicals represented a certain kind of elitist attitude, really, in government to a lot of people. And with that moderate support gone, they really didn't have a base to stand on. And 1873, the key there's a panic of 1873, which is going to cause the faith to crash even more. All right, so 24, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, they're called the Reconstruction Amendments. The 13th abolishes slavery. The 14th makes those former slave citizens. And the 15th gives them the right to vote. All right, and then 25, the crisis of 1876, the compromise of 1877. You've got two candidates. You've got a Republican named Rutherford B. Hayes. You've got a Democrat named Samuel Tilden. The popular vote goes to Tilden, but that doesn't really matter. The electoral vote is what counts. And 4 states are undecided on who actually wins the election. And so, in a compromise of 1877, Hayes is going to be given the presidency if the radicals will remove all of the federal troops from the South and let the South kind of go back to running and governing itself. So the crisis of 1876 is the dispute over the votes. The compromise of 1877 is the decision to let Hayes, the Republican, have office if he removes all of the troops from the South. So there you go. All right, test tomorrow. Again, I will be online from 7 to 7:30. There's a link on the front page of the website where you can go and you can just type in there. It's a back channel. It's real simple to use. 7 to 7:30 tonight. That's when I'll be on. If you have any other questions, you can email me. Again, if it's much after 9:30, I probably won't get back to you. But anytime before that, you can catch me. So, all right, that'll do it.